This is the Mop Up. I'm David Feldman in New York City. Happy New Year. I can't believe it's 2026. I'm still writing Dick Cheney is a war criminal on my checks. I should be writing Pete Hegseth is a war criminal on my checks. Instead of putting the date down, I just write who the latest war criminal is. Good riddance to 2025. Glad you're dead. Now go F yourself, 2025. That entire year can just go F yourself. And I hope you rot in hell, 2025. And to be honest with you, 2026, you're not doing me any favors either. So you can go F yourself too, 2026. In fact, this entire Anthropocene epic can go F itself. And so long as I'm cleaning house today, the Cretaceous epic, you can go F yourself too. I need not remind my listeners the Cretaceous epic gave us the cockroach. And as a New Yorker, I know I speak for everyone when I say the world would have been a lot better off had we skipped the Cretaceous epic and gone straight to the Paleocene epic. My resolution for 2026 is to lose as many listeners as I possibly can. That's my goal, to just simplify my life and do this show like Rupert Pupkin in my mother's basement with cardboard cutouts of an audience. The Guardian reporting that Trump welcomed in the new year at Mar-a-Lago, hosting a party where Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem were caught on video dancing to a live performance. I'm not making this up. They were dancing to a live performance of Ice Ice Baby performed by Vanilla Ice. And I'm going to show you Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem dancing to Ice Ice Baby. This is actual video you're going to see moments before Kristi Noem accidentally broke into the Macarena and immediately paid herself $3,000 to self-deport. All right, can you see this? This is actual footage from Donald Trump's New Year's Eve extravaganza, where that is Vanilla Ice. And we're told he's dancing with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. And Kristi Noem is dancing with Stephen Miller, who's a middle-aged mutant turtle, not quite a ninja. So let me freeze this for a second. Can you see that? That is an actual Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle on stage at Mar-a-Lago with Vanilla Ice at the big New Year's Eve bet. Let me go bigger there. Can you see that? During his performance, Vanilla Ice introduced one of the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But here's the thing. Let's see. This is the odious Katie Miller, who is the wife of the odious Stephen Miller. This is Katie Miller. She has her own podcast. She has a face that resembles a worn-out catcher's mitt, doesn't she? Now, here is Stephen Miller's lovely wife, Katie Miller, whose face looks and smells like Guy Fieri's car seat. Let's bring in one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That, of course, would be Donatello. And I don't mean to insult your intelligence. You already know that would be Donatello. But I now see what happened. Vanilla Ice was performing. Stephen Miller's hideous wife, Katie Miller, jumped up onto the stage to dance. And Vanilla Ice, he made a mistake. It's an honest mistake, because if you're looking at Stephen Miller's Meeskite wife, Katie Miller, who's a Meeskite, if you see her through the corner of your eye, it's really easy to mistake her for Donatello, who is one of my favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I'm not quite sure we had a Teenage Mutant Teenage Ninja Turtle at the New Year's Eve bash in Mar-a-Lago. That was probably Katie Miller, wife of Stephen Miller, dancing on stage. Well, Katie and Stephen Miller used the New Year's bash to make the big announcement they are expecting another child. That's why they were in Florida to attend Trump's party, and then right after, they went to deposit her eggs on the beach. Look at these two Can you imagine them procreating? This is why the good Lord invented darkness. No afternoon delight with these two, unless they bring out the blindfolds. As ugly on the outside as they are on the inside. Well, what a way to ring in the new year at Mar-a-Lago. Ice Ice Baby, sung by Vanilla Ice. I'm surprised he was available. Vanilla Ice, also known as Rob Van Winkle. That's his real name, Rob Van Winkle. And in the audience at Mar-a-Lago that night was Rob Van Winkle's father, Rip Van Winkle, who, having just woken out of a 30-year coma, looked around Mar-a-Lago and was relieved to discover it was still the 1990s. You do realize if Trump wanted actual entertainment for his New Year's bash, he could have booked Ye or Kanye or Andrew Mountbatten Windsor Mellencamp or whatever Kanye's calling himself these days. The point is, Trump could have easily booked Ye to wrap in the new year. Instead, he went with Vanilla Ice. Why? Well, there's a problem. Kanye's no longer welcome inside Mar-a-Lago, and I need not remind you why. He's black. The Nazi stuff, Trump is fine with that. It's the black thing. Very inappropriate behavior, being black. It's simply not tolerated at Mar-a-Lago or the White House. Have you seen Trump's appointees? He's got one black agency head, Housing and Urban Development Chief Scott Turner. Look at this. I've seen darker cabinets inside an Apple store. So Trump went with Vanilla Ice. Literally, they booked a pun. They literally booked a pun. This White House thought it would be funny to ring in 2026 by celebrating the work of America's cowardly ICE agents by booking Vanilla Ice to sing Ice Ice Baby. And I want to thank one of my listeners for telling me this. He sent me the clipping from the Daily Mail. Did you know Border Commander Gregory Bovino, who's running the deportations in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Charlotte, did you know his father did time for manslaughter? He killed a young girl. Greg Bovino's father killed a young girl. He did time for killing. His father wasn't just a hopeless alcoholic, but he got behind the wheel of his car drunk and crashed into a young girl and killed her. That's Greg Bovino's father. Went to prison when Bovino was 11, and yet Greg Bovino's father got to stay in the country. Bovino's father, worst of the worst, but somehow he got to stay in the country even though he killed a young girl. And he only served 1 year in prison. Got behind the wheel of his car, totally Trump-faced, killed a girl, got sentenced to 1 year in prison. Why? Because he's white. Meanwhile, his son Gregory Bovino, wearing jackboots with elevator heels, is tossing people in jail for the crime of showing up for their immigration hearings. That's who they celebrated at Mar-a-Lago on New Year's. This homunculus, this worthless POS, Greg Bovino. They literally thought it was funny dancing to Ice Ice Baby at Mar-a-Lago on New Year's Eve while 68,000 people are currently held in a network of overcrowded, for-profit ICE detention facilities only equipped to handle 45,000 detainees. The Trump administration thought it would be funny to dance to Ice Ice Baby. You know, at least Nero knew how to play his own fiddle while Rome burned. Trump is too stupid to learn a musical instrument, so he had to hire Vanilla Ice as America burns. 1 meal a day, if they're lucky. No access to a lawyer or a medical professional, separated from their children, sleeping on the cold concrete floor, surrounded by rats, overflowing toilets and cockroaches, no priests allowed to perform communion, And this is what the Trump administration celebrated at Mar-a-Lago on New Year's Eve, because it's pretty much what you get if you book the presidential suite at Mar-a-Lago. You see this? This is who they're celebrating. Those are ICE agents this year outside the Broadview Detention Center in the suburbs of Chicago, hitting the Reverend David Black of First Presbyterian Church in the face with pepper balls and tear gas. And just to make sure New Year's was a complete and total affront to human decency, Donald Trump, during the celebration, not making this up, auctioned off a painting of Jesus Christ that ended up fetching nearly $3 million. What was it, $2.75 million? Here's the painting. That is Jesus Trump, America's Lord and Savior, who was nailed to the cross by Polish day laborers who never got paid. Little inside joke for people who lived in New York in the 80s, if you're still alive. But it is a beautiful work of art, Jesus Trump. It was done by the Grand Master Trump commissioned to paint the brand new mural inside the Trump Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. I'm sorry, I didn't pronounce that properly. The Trump Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. That's the proper pronunciation. Trump Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And look at this portrait. It's very Department of Government efficiency, isn't it? Instead of paying for a portrait of Kennedy and a portrait of Trump, they did this. In business, they call it the economy of scale, or symbiosis. Symbiosis, which also happens to be the name of the only musician who hasn't backed out of their booking at the Kennedy Center. The president who defines himself by his war against cancel culture is literally being canceled by culture. They can't fill the room. Nobody. John Ross, my friend John Ross called me. He said they're doing bringer shows. If you want to perform at the Kennedy Center, you got to pay and then bring your own. All right. Actually, I'm being told this is the picture of Jesus that sold for nearly $3 million on New Year's Eve. Down at Mar-a-Lago, nearly $3 million for that painting of Jesus. But it was for charity. Trump said half the proceeds will go to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. The other half will go to the Palm Beaches Sheriff's Office. And the other half will go to Trump, split evenly down the middle, 50% for the sick kids, 50% for the cops, and 50% for Trump, and another 50% for Mar-a-Lago's administrative fees, split right down the middle. Trump is allowed, by the way, to do his charity auction in Florida. Can't do it in New York State, because New York State Attorney General Letitia James successfully sued Trump in 2019 while he was president. Letitia James nailed the Trump Charitable Family Foundation. Yes, there used to be a Trump Charitable Family Foundation. She nailed Trump for ripping off donors to the Trump Charitable Family Foundation. While he was president back in 2019, Trump agreed to pay millions in restitution to the people he literally stole money from. He signed an agreement promising never to run or host a charity event in the state of New York ever again, which is one of the first things Trump tried to do when he returned to the Oval Office last year was get Letitia James indicted for mortgage fraud. Technically, he tried to get her indicted for proving beyond any reasonable doubt that Donald Trump's a thief. Mortgage fraud was what he attempted to get her on. So he hasn't been able to. 3 times he got her indicted. Can't do it. Won't stick. Because he's stupid. And he's only comfortable around stupid lawyers, like runner-up in the Miss Colorado beauty pageant, Lindsay Halligan, who he appointed to prosecute Lindsay James. But it turns out, and I didn't know this, just because a woman pours herself into a tight business suit wearing stiletto heels, false eyelashes, and enough mascara to make a Romanian call girl blush, that doesn't necessarily mean she's a smart lawyer. I guess it's true what they say, looks can be deceiving. I mean, on the surface, you would think she's F. Lee Bailey. Because of Letitia James, Trump was ordered to pay the state of New York $500 million in fines for ripping off lenders. Of course, that's in the appeals process, but she proved beyond any reasonable doubt that Trump falsified business records to secure a lower interest rate on loans he was taking out. And she also proved that he was stealing from his charity. He had to pay restitution to the Army Emergency Relief. That would be our soldiers. The Children's Aid Society had to cut them checks. Meals on Wheels, the Holocaust Museum, the United Negro College Fund, the United Way. The list goes on and on. He was just cutting checks to settle the lawsuit against the Trump Charitable Family, or the Trump Family Charitable Foundation, which Letitia James put out of business. He was ripping off sick kids, soldiers, old people who can't afford to eat. That's what you got to admire about Trump. Unlike his hiring practices, when it comes to stealing, Trump refuses to discriminate. If you're a needy child, a wounded soldier, a hungry senior citizen, or a banker willing to lend you hundreds of millions of dollars, Trump will rip you off. His motto is, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled billionaires yearning to be deceived. Did you know that Trump is the only gangster with an offshore bank account on Ellis Island? Everybody else has to go to the Cayman Islands. He's got one set up right on Ellis Island at the tip of Manhattan. That's how special Donald Trump is. The greatest, and I do mean this, the greatest con artist in American history. When borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars to pay back the hundreds of millions of dollars he already borrowed, Trump would often claim Mar-a-Lago as collateral, putting down into writing that Mar-a-Lago adds a couple $100 million to his net worth, even though the Palm Beach, Florida tax assessor put it at around $20 million. And more importantly, Trump doesn't really own Mar-a-Lago because it's a National Historic Landmark. In 1995, he turned Mar-a-Lago over to the National Trust for Historic Preservation in order to reduce his taxes, and that trust is in perpetuity, meaning he can never, ever subdivide the property. Theoretically, Mar-a-Lago is worth $500 million, the same way the White House, theoretically, is worth $10 billion, but he's not allowed to tear either building down and subdivide, which means the resale value on Mar-a-Lago is only $20 million, and the resale value on the White House is maybe, I don't know, what does he think he's going to get for the White House? $50 million at best? Which is why he's a really bad investor. This is why he declared bankruptcy at least six times that we know of. What he's doing with the White House is just stupid. Everyone knows the White House is a fixer-upper. You don't pour millions into remodeling the place, hoping to flip it. You've limited your options. A young couple might not want a gold-studded ballroom. They might have small kids and want to turn it into a nursery. He should have never touched the White House. He should have just sold it as is. But he's stupid. Well, I'm sure he's borrowing millions against the White House, using the White House as collateral, convincing foreign lenders who are laundering money for drug dealers and Russian oligarchs that the White House is his collateral, because that's how he rolls. That's how Donald Trump rolls. Mar-a-Lago, like the White House, can't be subdivided, so it's only worth $20 million. I think the White House is worth a little more. But Mar-a-Lago is worth $20 million. That didn't stop Trump from borrowing tens, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars against Mar-a-Lago. He kept saying throughout that civil fraud trial, Mar-a-Lago is worth $500 million. No, it's not. Now, I know this can be confusing. It's a shell game. Let me simplify this. This is who Donald Trump is. Imagine you decide to Airbnb your apartment because you're going away for 3 months. When you come back after 3 months, a bank you never heard of says you're delinquent on the interest payments on the mortgage you took out against your apartment. And you say, I don't own this apartment. I rent. I didn't take out a mortgage. And the bank says, yes, you did. It says right here on the mortgage, you and your partner, Donald Trump, borrowed $5 million against your studio apartment. And you say, no, I don't own this apartment. I rent this apartment. Then I Airbnb it to Donald Trump. And the bank says, well, he borrowed against it. You owe us for the interest when you paying us back. That's who Donald Trump is. And now he's our president. So that means tax cuts for the rich reduces the deficit. Tariffs are not paid by the American consumer, and the economy right now, red hot. Anyway, back to the portrait of Jesus that sold for nearly $3 million on New Year's Eve at Donald Trump's quote-unquote charity auction. It was painted in real time while the party was going on. It was painted by, this is her name, Vanessa Hora Buena, who calls herself a Christian worship artist. That's her profession. She's a Christian worship artist, not to be confused with Trump's good friend Franklin Graham, who's a Christian con artist. Franklin Graham runs Billy Graham Ministries and Samaritan's Purse, and over the past decade, he's averaged more than $1 million a year. That's been his salary, close to $1 million a year. It's really a great racket, isn't it? If Jesus is forgiven, I'm doing the sinning. I can sin. I'm sinning because he's forgiven. It's kind of like Trump's pardon power. Everyone inside the Trump White House right now knows a pardon awaits them. Sin away. Anyway, Vanessa Hora Buena, the Christian worship artist, I didn't know there was actually such a thing as a Christian worship artist. She is able to finish her Jesus portraits incredibly fast. It's like she's painting in tongues because she's entirely consumed by the spirit of Jesus. And of course, the prospect of selling her painting of him for $3 million, because that's what Jesus would want. Well, it was for charity. I have no doubt she did this completely for free. So this is a picture from New Year's Eve at Mar-a-Lago. That is the artist, Vanessa Hora Buena. And on her left is Jesus, right? And on her right, that would be Satan. And let me zoom in there. There you go. On her right now, you can see those are the brushes she used for the painting. Not the painting of Jesus, the painting of Kristi Noem's puppy-killing face. Kristi Noem needs a lot of brushes to slather on the makeup to disguise the rot oozing from her skin. This is a woman, Kristi Noem. She runs the Department of Homeland Security. She not only killed Cricket, the family puppy, but thought it was a good idea to write about killing the family puppy in her autobiography. She thought, that's an anecdote that makes me look like I'm presidential material. She later said she wrote about killing Cricket, the family puppy, To prove to voters she's willing to make the tough decisions. Doesn't sound like it was that tough a decision for her to make. Sounds to me like Mommy had one of her perimenopausal red mists. So she got out the shotgun, stumbled into the gravel pit, spotted Cricket, the family puppy, and Mommy snapped. And then, as Christie's fluctuating levels of estrogen and progesterone stabilized and Cricket's death rattle became a mere silent echo, Mommy put away her weapon, strolled back into the house to freshen up before the kids got home from school to discover their family puppy, Cricket, bleeding out in the gravel pit. So before the kids, this is true, they came home off the school bus to see Cricket bleeding out in the gravel pit. But before the kids came back from school, Kristi Noem performed self-care, reminding herself, it's not easy killing the family puppy, but it had to be done, and I did it. I killed the family puppy. I, Kristi Noem, I killed the puppy with Jesus watching over my shoulder. I can make the difficult decisions for the good of our family. And just like killing her children's puppy for their own good, right now, Kristi Noem, with Jesus watching over her shoulder, the same Jesus who was with Kristi Noem in the gravel pit telling her, go ahead, pull the trigger, kill Cricket. Right now, Kristi Noem is separating children with stage 4 cancer from their mothers for the good of our country and for the good of those children with stage 4 cancer who are getting sent back to Central America without their mother or their medication. No, it's not easy killing a puppy. It's not easy deporting a child with stage 4 cancer, separating that kid from their mother and their life-saving drugs, but that's what leadership is. I know that because Jesus told me so. It was an exciting event at Mar-a-Lago, New Year's Eve at Mar-a-Lago. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was there with his wife, but unfortunately, the Netanyahus didn't trip the light fantastic after they noticed the Mar-a-Lago dance floor wasn't littered with Palestinian graves. That's not a dance floor. Without Palestinian graves, the Netanyahus have nothing to dance on. And Melania thought, since Donald already wears a diaper, he should greet the guests while dressed as the baby New Year. Well, it was a great event. Mar-a-Lago welcoming in 2026. There's Donald wearing his Dr. Scholl's orthopedic cummerbund. That's how bad Donald's cankles are. They're swelling upwards, too. His cankles go down and up, so he's got to wear an orthopedic cummerbund made by Dr. Scholl's. And, of course, there's Melania arriving at the big New Year's Eve party dressed as a baked potato. I believe her outfit is made entirely of discarded Reynolds wrap from the Mar-a-Lago kitchen. There's America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, telling security, I'm only here for a few minutes. I just popped in to say hello to the scotch, and then I'm leaving. See, what Rudy does, this is true, what Rudy does at GOP functions is he follows Senator Mitch McConnell around because Mitch McConnell is old, he's got shaky hands, and Mitch McConnell always makes it worth Rudy's time for Rudy to drop to his knees and start licking the carpet where Mitch McConnell spilled some of his Kentucky bourbon. Here, this is actual video. This is Rudy Giuliani refusing to let any of Mitch McConnell's Kentucky bourbon go to waste. That was a video. I have a video photographer friend who was I can't tell you his name. His initials are AI, and he was filming at Mar-a-Lago. And this is Rudy, just 5 minutes after Defense Chief Pete Hegseth spilled a few of his drinks. Poor Rudy. Well, as you know, 2026 is an important year because Donald turns 80 in June, which has just been named, Trump-tober. So make a note of that. The Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America. The Department of Defense is now the Department of War. And the month of June is now Trump-tober. And in honor of Melania, September is now named Trump's wife. And so, as we approach the second year of his second term and the 80th year of his fantastic life, many of you are wondering, how much more of this do we have to take? Obviously, the Republicans, the Supreme Court, the Democrats, corporate America, the media, nobody has the courage to stop him. But what about Father Time? A lot of people in the media and feckless Democrats, they keep fixating on Father Time as though Father Time will fix this. It's almost as though some of these people are hoping Father Time summons the courage that our leaders and institutions lack. Recently, there was video of an exhausted Trump arriving in Palm Beach to spend the weekend at Mar-a-Lago, and Trump looked like he could barely make it into the limo. I mean, you saw he was holding onto the railing for fear he might trip over the cankle flab, dripping under his socks, down to his shoes, and then onto the steps. He's literally walking on top of his cankle flab, and you can trip on your cankle flab. Well, heavy is the head that wears the crown, or whatever that is on top of Trump's head. Is it possible Trump has exhausted himself? I would be shocked. I would be. Because if there is one word to describe Donald Trump, it's indefatigable. But he's almost 80, and a lot of people are saying Trump's looking defatigable. There may be no more squeeze left in that lemon, and we may have seen the last of Donald Trump's fatigability. The Wall Street Journal yesterday had an exclusive interview with Donald Trump, who agreed to have a candid conversation about his health. In other words, he agreed to lie. Trump told the Wall Street Journal that he is a big believer in genetics. Now, Trump often says that life is determined by your genes. Why does he say that? Because he's a white supremacist. That's what white supremacists believe. It's all about your genes. Trump says, I don't have to study or read a book. My Uncle John was a professor at MIT, so it's in my genes. I've got good genes, so I don't need to read. So on his health, Donald Trump told the Journal, quote, genetics are very important, and I have very good genetics. Who talks that way? You have very good genes. You don't have very good genetics. He's talking about the genes he inherited from his parents, which I'm pretty sure Trump was ordered to turn over to his creditors back in the 90s, along with everything else he inherited from his parents. Well, Trump's a big believer in genetics and phrenology. He's a big believer in phrenology. Skull shapes are destiny. I think he once said that. By the time Donald's father, Fred, was Donald's age, Fred was senile. But luckily, Donald's batshit craziness scares the senility gene into submission. The senility gene looks at Donald's batshit crazy and says, nah, I'm good. Don't mind me. I'm just going to sit back here inside the hippocampus and chill. We're good, right? We're good. Batshit crazy. You're not going to hurt me? Good. So I'm just going to be back here in the hippocampus chilling. Well, the fact is, Trump must have some pretty strong genes because, quite frankly, it's a miracle this man hasn't stroked out already, considering the crap he shoves into his mouth. Crap goes in and crap goes out. It's like a human composting station for crap. The chairman of the Republican National Committee told the Wall Street Journal in this article that he once flew on Trump's jet and watched our president consume in a matter of minutes a Big Mac, a Quarter Pounder, a Filet-O-Fish, French fries, and of course, a Diet Coke, because Diet Coke is even worse for you than regular Coke. According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump lives on a diet of salt, sugar, fatty foods, and Diet Coke. And people say, isn't that great? He's the most powerful man in the world, and yet he eats at McDonald's. He's a regular guy. No, he's an irregular guy, hence the diaper. You never know when old unfaithful might blow. As for exercise, well, golf is exercise if you don't use a golf cart and you carry your own bags, but Trump doesn't walk the course and he doesn't carry his own bags. However, he does burn more calories than your average golfer because he cheats. He gets in a few extra swings, and that's some extra cardiovascular. Not much, but some. So cheating is good. Trump has said during interviews he believes each human has a limited number of heartbeats, that energy is finite, so why waste it on exercise? He told the Wall Street Journal exercise is boring, that running on a treadmill is boring. Quote, it's not for me. It's not for me. Like reading, emotional intelligence, a tenuous connection to reality, it's not for me. Obviously, there's something going on inside that orange slathered sack of methane Trump mistakenly calls a body. Trump made 2 trips to Walter Reed Hospital last year, and the White House has been anything but transparent about what went on during those examinations. First, we were told Trump got an MRI, then we're being told it was a CT scan. Trump told the Wall Street Journal it was just a CT scan, not an MRI, and then they called his doctor who confirmed it was just a CT scan, and I was just checking for cardiovascular issues. Really? You need to check Trump for cardiovascular issues? How can he not have cardiovascular issues? Well, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? He's a very private man, especially when it comes to his health. The Journal reporting that during Trump's first term, Trump wouldn't even admit to getting a colonoscopy. You're supposed to tell people, I'm Donald Trump. I got a colonoscopy. You should get a colonoscopy. But you see, I can't blame him for not admitting that he got a colonoscopy. Just the words, Donald Trump's colonoscopy, makes me never want to eat again for the rest of my life. Forget these new weight loss drugs. You don't need them. Just think, seriously. Put a piece of beautiful apple crumble coffee cake in front of you, right? And then think of Donald Trump's colonoscopy. Think of Donald Trump prepping for his colonoscopy. I'm good. I should mention, by the way, Donald Trump's last colonoscopy, very painful. Not for Trump, for Howard Lutnick, who got poked in the eye when the doctor shoved the camera up there. Trump told the Wall Street Journal, quote, my health is perfect. Sure it is. And Melania didn't have to wear a gas mask when they conceived Barron. I think that's the last time they had sex. And from what I've heard, people are saying Melania had to wear a gas mask the last time she made love to Donald Trump, making love to Donald Trump. Dr. Oz, who now serves as administrator for Medicare and Medicaid, told the Wall Street Journal, quote, Trump's just with it. He's with it, especially on very complex topics. Yeah, he's with it. His brain is amazing. Trump's almost as sharp as the pains in his chest. The Journal writes that Trump does keep an active schedule. A look at his private calendar showed 19 days that were jam-packed. And by jam-packed, he ate a lot of jam. The Journal says Trump requires very little sleep, starts his day early in the private residence, and then works at the Oval Office until 7, sometimes 8 p.m. in the evening, although I'm not sure if taking to social media to call CNN's Caitlin Collins stupid and nasty in 50 separate posts, I'm not sure if that qualifies as work. Maybe it does. I don't know. The Wall Street Journal goes on to say there's the official narrative, what Trump's closest associates, his doctors, all say publicly, where they swear he's the healthiest person they ever met, that even though he's pushing 80, he's got the mind of a child. Okay, they don't say he's got the mind of a child because you don't have to say that. We already know that. But when the Journal talked to Trump's closest associates off the record, they admitted privately he's slowing down, he's hard of hearing, he's drowsy, and he's not always there. Then there's the issue of Trump's thin skin. Literally. He also has thin skin, literally. The Journal writes of Pam Bondi's ring on her finger nicking Trump's skin during the Republican National Convention, and Trump began to bleed profusely. Aides were taken aback by how long it took for Trump's blood to coagulate, with one person privately telling the Wall Street Journal, quote, Donald Trump's skin is very delicate. Well, it's not just the skin, it's the bleeding. He's a bleeder. And then there's the issue of the holes in Donald Trump's hands. Literally holes in his hands. Take a look at that. What's that about? Why does he have holes in his hands? Maybe it's from the spikes when the Romans nailed him to the cross. But it has been an ongoing problem this year. Trump says he's not concerned about the holes in his hands. He says, I just put makeup on them. You don't put makeup on holes in your hands. You need spackle. Okay? The holes, the bruising is very evident. And the makeup isn't hiding it. Now, Mr. Trump, if you're watching, you own several golf courses. Remember, you're supposed to replace all divots. You don't spray paint a divot green. You put fresh sod down. You need to replace those divots in your hands. They're disgusting. The White House says the holes are from all the hand shaking. Who's he shaking hands with? Dr. Hook from Peter Pan? Edward Scissorhands? I've shaken a lot of hands. Nobody's ever poked a hole in my hand. Trump, his staffers, and his doctors say the bruising on his hands, the holes in his hands, are caused by the handshaking and the aspirin he takes each day to thin his blood. Trump told the Journal, they say aspirin is good for thinning out the blood, and I don't want thick blood pouring through my heart. I want nice, thin blood. I want nice, thin blood, not the thick blood. I want it thin. It's like he's ordering marinara sauce, not too thin. You should coat the noodles, but not thick. So it turns out Trump's doctor prescribed a low dose of aspirin for him to take each day because it is believed by some that aspirin clears out the bloodstream. However, I've read aspirin also makes you at risk for a stroke. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what I'm talking about. So yes, I am auditioning for Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s job, if Trump is watching. Trump said he decided all by himself that 81 milligrams of aspirin, basically baby aspirin, isn't enough. So on his own, he's gone ahead and what does it say? He's more than tripled the dose, going from the recommended 81 milligrams to 325 milligrams of aspirin each day. Now, I don't think that's bad for you. I don't think aspirin is dangerous, but I also don't think this is what's causing the holes in our president's hand. But I do love Trump's explanation for upping the dosage on his own, refusing to listen to the doctor about taking a lower dosage. Trump told the Wall Street Journal, I'm taking the higher dosage because, quote, I'm a little superstitious. He's upped his dosage of aspirin because he's a little what does superstition have to? Oh, right. Red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in morning, sailors take warning. And 325 milligrams of aspirin, not the 81 milligrams your doctor recommended, because what the hell does he know? I think that's how the saying goes. Then there's the issue of Trump dozing off during cabinet meetings. Both the New York Times, the Washington Post, bloggers all over the world have written extensively about Trump struggling to fight off sleep. You'd think with all the horrors Donald Trump's inflicted, he'd have trouble sleeping, but no, he can barely stay awake. Some suggest he's on some kind of medication that causes drowsiness. Who knows? Maybe he's just bored. Maybe killing innocent fishermen and separating children with stage 4 cancer from their mothers just doesn't do it for him the way it once did. The thrill is gone. He's sleepy. During the interview with the Journal, Trump was more than happy to talk about the perception that during cabinet meetings he's been, how shall we put it, not woke. The sleep of kings, that's what it is. To dream, perchance to wet my pants. I think that's from Shakespeare, right? To dream, perchance to wet my pants. Isn't that Hamlet? Trump told the Wall Street Journal he's not napping. That's what he said. I'm not napping. I'm just closing my eyes. He says closing my eyes is very relaxing. That's all. He says, I'm not napping. The drool dripping down the side of my face, that's nothing. I have a self-cleaning mouth. I'm not napping. That's not drool. I have a self-cleaning mouth. You know, his lawyers, this is true. This is absolutely true. His lawyers said privately that during those trials back in 2024, he would fart in his sleep. He would fall asleep. They said he would fall asleep during the trial, which we know, and then he'd start farting. They don't have it. The timing is off. We're talking about Trump farts. So first Trump farts, then he doesn't so much as fall asleep as he does pass out from his Trump farts. That's what they do. They make you pass out, which is why I've been told in order to conceive Barron, Melania had to wear a gas mask. Now, I don't know if that's true, but that's what people are saying. That's what I've heard. I've heard myself just say that. Why would I hear myself just saying this if it weren't true? Aides to the president and Trump insist photographers are just waiting for him to blink. And then just as he blinks, like snakes in the grass, they snap a photograph to make it look like he's sleeping. He said it's very unfair. The Wall Street Journal says his advisors are privately concerned that it's a bad look for a president pushing 80 to be photographed with his eyes closed during cabinet meetings, so they have urged him to remember the optics. Remember the optics, Mr. President, and keep your eyes open at all times. But the White House denies that in order to stay awake during cabinet meetings, they deny Trump is juicing. By the way, that is not a photograph. That is actual video of Trump wide awake at a cabinet meeting. He looks normal to me. Well, I have some actual video of Donald Trump not just falling asleep during a cabinet meeting, but talking in his sleep. This is exclusive video. It was given to me by a very powerful and influential White House official. I can't tell you who it is. All I can say is their initials are AI, okay? This is video from my friend AI. It's never been seen before. This is video of Donald Trump in the middle of a cabinet meeting talking in his sleep, okay? Exclusive video.
No, Mommy, I didn't do number 2 in my pants. Fred Jr. did number 2 in my pants.
Okay, that is from my friend who works in the White House. That is, his initials are AI. That's all I'm allowed to tell you. Let's watch that again.
No, Mommy, I didn't do number 2 in my pants. Fred Jr. did number 2 in my pants.
I wonder what he's trying to say. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Thank you for joining me. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room for keeping the conversation civil. Please like this episode so I remain in your feed. Please share it. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to my newsletter. And most importantly, leave a comment. I read all your comments. I think that covers everything, right? Okay. Thank you.